Can you tell me a couple of things that might quit working when it's cold outside?
First one is kind of like a tricky one, so I'm gonna say chlorine. You know your chlorine's not working when you can smell chlorine.
3 signs my chlorine is not working.
Oh god. You smell chlorine, you have chloramines. You have chloramines, you have problems. How do you know if your pump is on its last leg?
If it sounds really, really, really loud,
Okay.
if it's 25 years, it might be on its last leg.
Today we're gonna talk about 2 mistakes to avoid when adding algicide to a swimming pool. Now the first one is should be pretty obvious, not adding chemicals together. And in this case, adding shock at the same time as you add algicide is a terrible idea, especially if it's a metal-based algicide like copper. Copper will stain. So second, don't add copper algicide. If you do so, you will likely not test your copper before adding the copper algicide to find out, where you are and where you're going to end up. And so you're probably most likely going to overdo it. And, in the presence of the chlorine, it's going to attach to the wall and cause staining. But have no fear. There is a solution.
Ascorbic acid is
Ascorbic
here.
acid is here. That's right. Ascorbic acid can actually break that stain from the surface and release it back into the water. In which case you could grab it up with a sequestering agent like metal out. That's right. Once you use metal out, the metal out will make the little ions a little bit bigger, and then the filter will be able to grab them, at which point you're going to want to clean your filter. That's right. And once you clean your filter, the iron, the copper, the whatever you add it to your pool will be properly disposed of outside of your swimming pool. And where it belongs. So if you already use a copper algicide, a little pro tip, take your water to a pool store and have it tested for copper. If you already have copper in your pool, don't use any more. If you do have copper, remove it. That's not good to have in your pool all the time. So
3 mistakes that you make when you're adding shock to a swimming pool. First of all, shocking when it's 127 degrees outside, your chlorine is going to evaporate super rapido.
Yeah,
so
Spanish
that's really for fast.
something.
Fast,
there
I
you
believe,
go.
yes.
Okay.
I don't know. Fact check me. So the second mistake is adding it when your pH is incorrect. So if you have a pH you should be testing your water beforehand anyhow. So if you've got a pH of, 8, maybe we need to address that and lower it to
First.
something more like a 7.4.
Okay.
And why is that? Because if we dump like 10 pounds of shock into a pool that has a pH of 8, you will have a 0 effect on anything. Your
so you waste your money.
You're just throwing. You might as well just roll your window down and throw out $100 because, that's just how it is. So you definitely want to check your pH and make sure your pH is a little lower. It will help the chlorine work more effectively.
Okay. So what next?
So next is you probably aren't adding enough.
Ah.
So let's say, the average pool is about 20,000 gallons. Well, the average size swimming pool does not require as much shock as, let's say, a 50,000 gallon swimming pool. Because if you go out to your backyard and you've got a ginormous swimming pool and you throw in a pound of shock,
1 pound won't do it.
1 pound will not do it.
Remember
you
that.
really should read the charts. If you want to bump up your chlorine at parts per million, you should read how many gallons you have and follow that little chart inside of the test kit. Can you tell me a couple of things that might quit working when it's cold outside?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the first one is kind of like a tricky one. So I'm going to say chlorine. So your chlorine quits working. It doesn't really quit working, but it quits becoming necessary. Once your pool water gets below 60 degrees or so, algae stops growing, and you really don't need chlorine anymore. So, the effectiveness is like nil. Second thing that quits working in the wintertime is your salt system. That's a good one, right? We get a lot of calls every winter for salt systems that they're like, hey, man, the light next to cold is on. Or, hey, why is this thing not producing chlorine anymore? Well, they're designed that way. Once the temperature gets below, in low 60s, they're designed to shut off to save the cell's lifespan. They're rated for so many hours, and if you don't have to run it in the winter, then why run it? You actually lengthen the lifespan of the salt generator. So those things are expensive, so every little day helps. Now, the third thing that quits working when it gets really cold is your pool cleaner. That's right, your pool cleaner. He doesn't want to be out there when it's 30 degrees outside.
No shorts and flip-flops.
No shorts and flip-flops, right? He's bundled up. He looks like a meat packer, right? He looks like a meat packer cleaning your pool. You don't even know how you can get that pole around with all the layers he's got on, right? And so, your pool cleaner would have to be the third one. How do you know if your pump is, I don't know, on its last leg, if it's about to die?
Okay, so I got 3 little tips for you. So number 1, if it sounds really, really, really loud, like so loud that your neighbors can hear it and are complaining, you might be having a problem.
Okay.
You might want to call somebody or check on that.
Okay.
The second one is the age. If it's 25 years, it might be on its last leg.
Oh.
Might not be working as efficiently as it should be. It might not be pushing that water through the filter as quickly. You might have issues priming your pump. So the third is if you've got it out and exposed to the heat and the sun. A lot of people don't have their equipment covered. The people who do have their equipment covered, their stuff tends to look nicer and last a little bit longer.
A lot longer.
So, it's like just sitting out in the sun all the time as a human being, you're going to shrivel up and you're going to evaporate. Same thing happens there.
Go to Florida. You'll see firsthand.
Yeah, also, this is just a pro tip. This is not really related, but don't store your chlorine right next to it because that can definitely, it's corrosive.
It's corrosive.
So that's it. That's my 3 little signs. 3 signs my chlorine is not working.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So, for one, this is the craziest one I've ever heard, like when I first got in this business. Like, your chlorine's not working when you can smell chlorine. Most people think, I can smell chlorine. The pool is great. No, that's not accurate. That's chloramines. You need to actually shock your pool. You put in 10 pounds of shock that, your chlorine should be at a 50 when you're done. And no, once it gets done attacking those chloramines, you're left with like a 3 part per million or a 0. So if your stabilizer level is over, they say a 50, but really I've found that you can go up as high as 80. Mm-hmm. Once your stabilizer gets above an 80, it sort of makes the chlorine stop working. And you can kind of get around that by adding more chlorine. But you just have to add so much. And at the prices that they're charging for chlorine these days, you really don't want to have to do that. You really want to minimize the amount of shock that you have to add. And the third way that you might know that your chlorine has stopped working is your water is dull, right? So, you're looking at your water, you've got a, whatever chlorine residual and a pH, everything looks great. But your water's just still dull. Most of the time, if your filter's operating properly, it's going to be your chlorine is the culprit. And the way to get rid of that, even if you have a chlorine residual of a 2 or 3 or whatever, you're going to have to shock your pool, and it basically polishes the water for you. It oxidizes any contaminants like just whatever that may be in the pool that needs to be knocked out with chlorine. But the last. This is like a bonus one. Oh. Yeah, because I was just thinking about this while I was talking about oxidizing stuff in the pool, is some things won't oxidize, like oils. Mm-hmm. Right? So suntan oils and body lotions and armpit juice and all that good stuff. That's right, armpit juice. That can also cloud up the water, not just like a chlorine. So in this event, if it doesn't clear up when you shock the pool, you most likely have some inorganics or organics in the water that it won't oxidize, and at which point you want to use what we like to use is called by Orinda Technologies. It's called 𝐶V700. 𝐶V700. That's right. It basically removes gases off the oils in the water, leaving the water just water and not water mixed with oils. First off, I'm a big proponent of hiring out stuff that you don't professionally do. So if you're not a professional pool cleaner, you have a pool, you should have a professional pool cleaner take care of your pool. It's like your oil in your car. You shouldn't change your own oil or rotate your own tires. You should have an oil guy or a tire guy do that, right? This creates a good economy for all of us Americans to live in, and to have separation of skills. So that being said, most people don't understand the importance of the three-legged milk stool. You know, they don't understand the importance of chemistry and learning chemistry, and how important it is to understand timing, how chemicals react with each other, safety, how to store chemicals properly, the shelf life of chemicals. Some people buy a bottle of something and it sits on their shelves for 3 years, and they think, oh, they're saving money by having this around, but it went bad 9 months ago. So you basically have a bottle of water sitting in your hot shed. So a lot of people think that taking care of the pool by themselves is something easy and they can do themselves, but water chemistry is very difficult. I don't appreciate when people try to say that our job is easy. We take care of like we keep water like a big body of water crystal clear in the middle of summertime with people dragging stuff and dogs and stuff dragging stuff into the pool, my water, and I'm able to anticipate and create an atmosphere that's both safe for humans and toxic for bacteria and algae. Like it's amazing what we do. And you may be able to keep your water clear by just throwing some shock in it, but is it really balanced, or have you forgotten about alkalinity or your calcium level? Are you pitting your plaster? Are you causing a calcium line on your tile that you won't be able to get off? Mm-hmm. This is long-term damage that's going to cost you thousands of dollars in some instances. So cutting corners by not having a professional take care of your pool, your investment, your luxury item, mm-hmm. is, in my opinion, ludicrous. Because if you don't know water chemistry, you're going to add the wrong amount of everything. You're going to listen to the pool stores people who they make 100% of their money off of retail chemical sales, so they have to sell you something to make a buck. They're going to sell you something and make you add it to your pool, and you probably don't need it, or at least not in that dose. So you're going to spend more money on chemicals. If you try to do your own repairs, you're going to end up breaking something, not knowing the pro tip on how this goes there, this do this left turn or right turn or whatnot. You're not going to know the tricks and tips to make things go fast. So you're going to spend 3 hours on YouTube, 4 hours screwing the job up, and then you're going to call us anyway, and we're going to charge you double. So avoid all that. Avoid the headache and your lost Saturday and the double pool bill. So hire a professional. This is a luxury item. A swimming pool is a luxury item, and it needs to be cared for as if it is a luxury item, like it's a yacht.
I think the general homeowner who tries the DIY stuff, just keep your pool going all year if you live, south of wherever the temperatures stay warmest. Just, if you don't really have a winter, keep your pool going all year long. Unfortunately, if you stop, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars to try and get it back to clear.
Yeah.
If you're doing it yourself, just saying.
Yeah.
So keep your pool pump going, throw some shock in every now and then, keep it going.
Yeah,
that'll save you a little bit of coin.
It takes very few dollars worth of chemicals to keep water clear and free of algae in the wintertime, mm-hmm. like very few dollars. Yeah. So the fact that people let their pools go instead of spending a few bucks, I still can't wrap my brain around it, but maybe one day somebody can explain it to me why spending, $30 over the winter versus $500 in the spring is a good trade-off. 3 things that can that reduce the effectiveness of your chlorine. Mm-hmm. So the first one is high CYA level. Mm-hmm. We talk about that a lot. We preach mm-hmm. that a whole bunch. If it's above an 80 part per million, you're going to have issues with chlorine lock. You have to use a lot more chlorine. Chlorine's expensive. You don't want to use expensive stuff if you don't have to, right? Chloramines in the water. Yep, chloramines is a big culprit. So what chloramines is chlorine tries to oxidize something in the water, but it can't, like a oil molecule. Mm-hmm. Where that oil molecule come from? Who put oil in my water? Everybody put suntan lotion on before they got in the water, and now the oil is floating on top of the water. Well, the chlorine goes to try to attack it, and it can't. It just gets kind of sticky and half broken, and mm-hmm. It's just kind of a nasty leftover version of what it used to be, and it starts to stink. It starts to smell like chlorine. If you smell chlorine, you have chloramines. Yeah. If you have chloramines, you have problems. That doesn't rhyme, but I wished it would have.
Well, if you were Post Malone, you'd probably make it rhyme. Just saying.
All right, what's up, Posty? So So
yeah, when you smell chloramines in the water, that does not mean that the pool is fresh.
Yeah, so you definitely
You've burned off all of the chlorine in the water, in fact, because it has gone to kill all the nasty organisms that are floating around in that water.
if you think that you can just be lazy one week and say, "Oh, I'll get them leaves next week," that's a terrible idea because you have funk. Like those leaves do not come in like just cleaned from from the factory where they make like computer chips. Like this isn't a clean thing. This is a dirty. It's got like nasty like bird dew on it. And it's got mold and funk. Well, it's now in your
Bugs.
pool. It put all this stuff in your pool. You got bugs. You got all kinds of stuff. Well, it's now in your pool. Well, you need to get it out, and then you need to chemically treat the water so that you can kill all that stuff. Well, if you just leave it in there, guess what? All that stuff on there does is it grows. It becomes more. It infiltrates. It grows into your plaster, and it becomes a problem. And in Texas heat, within just a couple of hours, they can turn your whole pool green. And so remove the debris as fast as you can out of your pool on a regular basis. During high foliage falling time, do it more often. Vacuum your pool a couple times a week or keep your robot running, daily. If you do have a robot, daily's best if you can't do it yourself. 5 warning signs that you have an algae bloom starting in your pool. First is, your pool's green. If your pool's green, you got an algae. The jig is up. That's right. You've got an algae bloom. So, no, but for real, like if you got low flow in your pool, low flow from either a clogged impeller, clogged filter, clogged line, closed valves, something preventing the flow from flowing in your pool, or if you have dead spots because you have your return jet fittings pointed in the wrong direction and you have dead spots in your pool, any kind of low flow situation where you have stagnant water.
Baskets full of leaves.
Baskets full of leaves will also slow the flow of water as well. So anytime you have low flow, you're going to have stagnant water, and stagnant water, especially when it's hot, it's going to grow algae. So you're going to notice typically the shallower parts of the pool, ledges and top steps, things of that nature, will have first get algae. Black algae will start off as spots. Yellow algae will be kind of a wispy, yellowish, pretty yellow. And then, of course, the green algae is just dirty
Hunter green.
Yeah, so notice around like your jets, like if the jets are pointed to the left, on the right side is a dead spot, believe it or not. And if you're going to grow black algae, that's a likely beginning spot for it to start to grow. The other spot is around the rim of the light in your pool. Check around there for any kind of globules of dark bluish green or black, just little nodules of junk, gross
like
stuff.
Bumps.
Check for that, and then obviously any kind of discoloration of the plaster would be an indicator of you got algae growth. But again, the main thing is going to be low flow. First and foremost, typically, what goes is the clarity of the pool, but not always. Sometimes you get the cloudy first pool, then it goes green. Sometimes you get the green on the wall first, but cloudy always ends up happening, unless of course it's black algae.
Well, yeah, that's totally a different animal.
Yeah. So that being said, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, another way that you can tell is if you walk over to your pool and you brush it and your plaster looks different, you might have something going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you run the vacuum or the brush head across the bottom of your floor or the wall and you get a billow of something, it's likely going to be algae.
Sometimes that happens with the different, the Pebble Tech, really. You got to make sure you brush in those pools, because if you're not, and you go to brush one week and you get green plumes, you've already had an algae bloom and you didn't even know it.
That's right.
So.
That's right. Talk to us about when it's a good time to drain your pool.
Okay. Well, so a couple of things. First of all, if you have tested your stabilizer level, and let's say it's well off the charts, like over 200, you would want to drain the pool maybe more than halfway, because that's pretty high, and you'd want to dilute that water with fresh water.
Okay.
So that's one scenario.
Okay.
Another scenario is just your total dissolved solids in general. If that's a high number, you're always going to have like cloudy and murky water. You're never
Yeah.
going to get that beautiful, sparkly, shine bright like a diamond look in your swimming pool
That's
that
right.
everybody is
That's right.
after. So that's number 2. Number 3 is my personal favorite, an acid wash.
Oh, yeah.
So when you have left your swimming pool and it sits for, I don't know, however long, and it all of a sudden looks like the swamp, there's no real cleaning that up. If there's fur growing on the walls and there's turtles in the swimming pool, you should drain it.
Save the turtles.
Yeah, save the turtles. We save the turtles, but get those turtles out. We have saved them for clients, in fact. So anyway, drain your pool, get all that funk, all that gunk, pressure wash it, fill it back up, and you'll have a pretty pool.
That's right.
So that
Pretty
would
pool.
be my recommendations for when you actually need to drain your swimming pool.
Every now and again, I'll look at my pressure gauge, and normally I run, I don't know, between 10 and 12 psi, but sometimes like it'll be like around 5.
Oh,
So when that happens, I know what I have to do, but like sometimes when we're at customers' houses, we have to pretend like we don't know what the problem is and inspect a lot of things, so it looks like our job is hard. But realistically, all this is typically involved is a clogged impeller.
Yep.
So typically what we do is we just remove the lid from the pump. We take out the basket, empty it, and inspect it for cracks because it's going to have one. Now, once you inspect that, go ahead and get on Amazon right there and order one. Mm-hmm. And you're going to take a screwdriver, and you're going to stick it into the pump, into the hole where the impeller is, and you're going to fish around, and you're going to fish out any debris that may be in there.
In which direction, though?
You always go counterclockwise, and you want to kind of stab kind of in and out, kind of like you're hooking at it, but still moving in a counterclockwise direction. And you want to do this until when you tap that screwdriver up against what you're hitting, it sounds hard. Now, if it feels mushy, it's probably a wad of leaves or even some grass or dog hair. So you want to fish that out. Once you get that fished out, replace the basket with a quality basket without any breaks in it. Replace your lid and prime your pump back up, and you should see a significant increase in your flow in your pool and the pressure in your filter. What is better, sand or cartridge filters?
Oh, well, in my own humble opinion, I prefer cartridge filters over sand filters.
Same, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. They filter better. They're a little more cumbersome when it comes to maintenance. You do have to take them apart, hose them down, and it takes what it takes. It takes like an hour to clean them things. But you do have to clean that, at least twice a year, sometimes more if you have green water. You do have to replace those things every few years at a pretty, several $100s. So there are some drawbacks to having a cartridge filter, but I will tell you the water clarity is so much better. The cost of chemicals is so much lower because your filters are really doing its job. It's really pulling its weight. So you have a good pump, good filter, you can use less chemicals. You can get away with it. Mm-hmm. So if you get a sand filter, it's like having a 4-cylinder in a diesel truck. It'll probably move it downhill, but it's not going to move it with a load uphill, right? So you don't want your filter struggling. You want it to really be optimally cleaning your pool, not struggling to keep up with it. So if you have that, you have a good pump, lower chemical usage. So it should offset the cost of the cartridges. Mm-hmm. Definitely going to have better water clarity to impress your friends and your family. Mm-hmm. And overall opinion, 100% we approve and prefer the cartridge filter over sand 100% of the time in every application, except for large commercial properties.
That's a different thing.
To where it's just not really feasible to have to clean those filters, weekly or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So anyway, any questions? Leave a comment below. We'll get right back to you. Peace.